Bryan Fogel is the Oscar-winning director of Icarus, and now his latest project is The Dissident, which details the assassination of journalist Jamal Khashoggi and how the government of Saudi Arabia restricts its citizens' freedom of expression. How did you get the most harrowing part of that documentary is the reading of the transcripts and the displaying of the transcripts of what happened at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. And how did you get access to the transcripts from that consulate? And what went through your mind when you read them for the first time?
Well, so much of what is in the film is really exclusive to the film. And it's not the transcripts. While Turkey had released portions of it, there's only a few people in the world that have this transcript right now. Basically, the CIA, British intelligence, French intelligence, and the Turks. And it took me a year of I can't even count the number of meetings with Turkish government officials back and forth between Istanbul and Ankara. I spent over 7 months in 2019 in Turkey and Istanbul. During that time, building trust with the Turkish government and building trust with Hatice, Jamal's fiance. And Turkey finally handed over the transcript about a year into the process. And at that time, it was a month ahead of the Sundance Festival for last year, for 2020. So we didn't have the real time to build out that sequence. And after Sundance, we went and spent almost another 6 months on the film. And the majority of that time was in that sequence with the transcripts because it was just so pivotal.
And what went through your mind when you read them for the first time?
Well, at that point, a lot of details I had known. And I'd been working on the story for over a year at that point. But I think what is shocking is to see what appears to be the joy that these assassins, MBS's, Mohammed bin Salman's kill team, are taking in murdering Jamal, dismembering him, and there's a real pride of work. And there's many times in the transcript where they are laughing and speaking of cutting him up, essentially like hanging a piece of cattle. And I think that is pretty distressing to see the cruelty that humans can enact on each other, and also the disassociation with somebody that suddenly you deem as your enemy rather than another human being.
Was incorporating Omar Abdulaziz's story always part of the plan for this documentary, or was that an aspect that is something that you discovered in the midst of working on the film and later brought into the fold?
No, that was from day one. As the story unfolded in those first 2 weeks of October 2018, myself and my creative team, to me, how were we not going to tell an archival film? And how was this going to be able to be crafted as a cinematic thriller? And not be a retrospective film about the murder of Jamal, but a verite of the moment film of the untold story behind his murder, but also the legacy of what really happened. And Omar Abdulaziz, in those first couple weeks after Jamal's death, a story had emerged in the New York Times that a young Saudi dissident, his phone had been hacked using Israeli cybersecurity software Pegasus. He was claiming to have audio of the Saudis coming to rendition him to go back to Saudi Arabia arguably to kill him or jail him, and he was coming forward with a story that was not known, and it became very clear to me at that point that he was key and pivotal as to whether or not to embark on this project. And so from the outset, myself and the creative team had really three major variables, and then there was a fourth. One was Omar Abdulaziz and his exclusive participation in the film. And that was about 6 months of trust building with Omar until he was fully ready to participate. The second was Hatice Cengiz, Jamal's fiance, and her exclusive participation. And that was several months of trust building. I spent 5 weeks in Istanbul where we didn't even shoot with her, beginning in November of 2018 till Christmas, just building trust as the world's media had hounded down on her. Third was the Turkish government, and that they would participate exclusively with me and grant interviews that would otherwise not be available, the transcripts, the video footage, pretty much everything you see in the film. While you might think you know the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, that has not been released to the world yet, and it's in the film. And so the Turks were pivotal, and then the Washington Post and the participation of people that I deemed as really key friends, namely Wada Khanfar and Ayman Noor. So it was really only until all of those kind of boxes were checked that I feel that I could really embark on making the film.
Do you keep in touch with Omar and Hatice for that matter? And also specifically with Omar, do you know what he's been up to since you finished working on the film?
There's not a day that goes by that that I'm not in communication with both of them. The reason being is I view there's different kinds of documentary filmmaking or getting involved. For me, this became as much about being an activist and embedding with these people and becoming part of their lives and helping them fight for justice in this murder, as it was making the film. And the film was secondary to what is and was a real unfolding story. This is not a retrospective piece. And as the film ends, Omar Abdulaziz's two brothers are still in prison. His 23 friends are still in prison. Thousands upon thousands of Saudi dissidents and human rights activists are in prison. And here we are 2 years after the Khashoggi murder, and nothing has changed. So Omar wakes up every day fighting this fight. Omar wakes up every day going, will things change in my country? And he keeps doing his work every day. And I told him when we started working together that if he let me into his life and he trusted me, that I was going to continue to do this work long after the film was done. So I talk to him every day. Hatice, the same thing. When we started working together, which was February of 2019, that was after 2.5 months of just trust building, of talking to each other every day. And I then followed Hatice all over the world for the next year. And she is still seeking accountability and justice for this murder. And every day we check in on each other. I consider Omar and Hatice basically my brother and sister at this point. And that's really how I go about making film. The same thing with Gregory Vuchenkov, a Russian whistleblower. When Icarus was finished, I'm still, through his protection, through his lawyers, constantly making sure that he's okay, continuing to work with his team to see that he's protected. I don't think the work stops when the film stops. And in this case, there's been no justice. There was a huge story that just broke today that Biden is saying that he is going to release the CIA's findings into the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, which arguably will, show beyond any shadow of a doubt that Mohammed bin Salman did order this murder. While Trump, in his final few days of office, is desperately trying to seek immunity for prosecution for Mohammed bin Salman, push through another $500 million worth of weapon sales to Saudi Arabia, and Qatar just bailed out the Kushner's building on Park Avenue in exchange for Saudi lifting the blockade. So this is, you can't have anything more timely as Biden taking office, and a possibility that the U.S.-Saudi relationship might be re-examined. And I'm hoping that this film will really be seen to allow people to, understand what happened, what is going on, and why this relationship needs to be re-examined. Because you can't have a country that is abusing human rights like this, and at the same time selling them, hundreds of billions of dollars of weapons, or entering into multiple picture deals to stream content for them. There's got to be a give here.
Well, Bryan, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you all the best this award season, and thanks for joining our panel today.